Hello, this is Natasha Harrison with Community Build Ventures, and I am just taking a moment to share our thoughts on the difference between racial equity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Recently, with the influx of just the heightened sense of social unrest and the need a lot of organizations are moving through to think about diversity, equity, inclusion, or racial equity, or anti-racism for that matter. We have been experiencing a lot of organizations using the word DEI for racial equity and racial equity for DEI. And from our perspective, we believe that racial equity is different than DEI. And so for us, racial equity is an outcome in which race no longer determines one's socioeconomic outcomes. Everyone has what they need to thrive no matter where they live. So they have the opportunities, supports, and services to thrive no matter where they live. And race no longer determines one's socioeconomic outcomes. And it's also a process. Racial equity is also a process that is really rooted in the people most impacted are involved in the creation and implementation of policies and practices. That is really rooted in a new way of thinking about community engagement that is centered on power building, wielding, and sharing. And so from our perspective, that's racial equity. Our work is rooted in racial equity work and supporting organizations that want to see impact from in a racially equitable society. DEI, on the other hand, diversity, equity, and inclusion, are the state of. It is really looking at typically an institution and organization and seeing, hey, do we have representation of all varied identities and differences, right, within our organization, and that's diversity. Or is there, equal access to opportunity within our organization or institution? Do we have a culture of belonging for people within our organization? It does not necessarily drive towards outcome and process, which for us is the reason why, all of the billions of dollars that have been pumped in DEI, and we have not seen a change in the way institutions show up, because they're not moving towards an outcome and a process that centers the people most impacted and are thinking about the supports, opportunities, and services for everyone to thrive, particularly within their organization. And so that's the difference for us. Would love to hear your thoughts on the difference between racial equity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Take care.